Hey everyone, so I have a really interesting bit of science news to start out the new year. It has to do with a special sense, the ability to sense magnetic fields. Now, a small handful of animals possess this ability, which is typically used for navigation. The animal can sense the magnetic field somehow, and it uses this information that it somehow perceives. We're not quite sure how it perceives this information, but it uses it to orient itself and then navigate across great distances, like during a seasonal migration or when traveling to a breeding area. One issue with our understanding here is that we really don't have a great idea what kind of sensory structure is involved and how the sensation of a magnetic field is perceived or interpreted. It's been theorized that some kind of magnetic biomineral is used, like magnetite. But the exact structure or mechanism of this magnetite sensor is not well understood. In some birds and some fish, for example, we've documented that the trigeminal nerve responds to magnetic stimulation, but how this sensory information is detected and decoded remains a mystery. There are many animals that are suspected of having this special sense, but no hard evidence, such as a sensory organ, has been discovered to substantiate these suspicions. Consider the salmon, which make impressive trips back to their spawning grounds at the end of their life. To quote a relevant passage from the research paper, these salmon, quote, possess an innate guidance mechanism utilized for long-distance migration and homing to natal rivers. Navigational cues include geomagnetic intensity and inclination, as shown by exposing juvenile salmon to simulated magnetic displacements. Although magnetite is present in salmon tissues, no deposits have been directly associated with sensory transduction, and in most cases are unlikely to represent the magnetoreceptor site. An important exception is occurrence of magnetite in olfactory epithelial tissue, innervated by the magnetically responsive superficial ophthalmic branch of the trigeminal nerve." Unquote. Okay, so that last part is where it gets really interesting. The researchers analyzed these magnetite deposits in the olfactory tissue of salmon and confirmed that they were genuine biological structures and not residue or encysted debris. This might seem kind of weird, but it's an important detail to take into consideration because a previous study found that what was a suspected magnetite deposit in birds' beaks were actually just encysted debris. Anyway, coming back to the salmon, the magnetite structures in their olfactory tissue take the form of, quote, uniformly sized and ellipsoid-shaped clusters, with each cluster containing a compact arrangement of individual particles. Clusters range in size from 200 to 300 nanometers and are estimated to contain 100 to 200 individual particles, with diameters that range from approximately 30 to 60 nanometers. Unquote. This structure, this magnetite arrangement, appears to imbue sensitivity to magnetic fields. This is an amazing discovery. Next, the researchers compared olfactory cells with the magnetite deposits to olfactory cells without them to identify differences in gene expression. And then they analyzed all of the different genes to determine which were involved in the production of the magnetite structures. And as the evidence suggests, many of these involved genes are associated with iron uptake, iron transport, and the binding of iron ions, as well as genes involved in the activity of cytoskeletal elements, which infers the construction of an organelle that uses or incorporates iron. After this, the researchers compared known magnetite biomineralization genes of many animals, including protostomes and deuterostomes. They identified 11 genes that are, quote, universally conserved, unquote, in eukaryotic animals. And 9 of these genes are also found in the archaeal clade Lokiarchaeota, which is monophyletic with eukaryotic animals. In other words, this means that some archaea, or some early eukaryotic microbe, somehow gained the ability to biomineralize magnetite, and this trait was modified into some kind of magnetic sensing organ over, countless millions of years of evolution. This trait was passed down to and modified among all the eukaryotes. Of course, many eukaryotic species would have lost these genes and the associated magnetic structures and ability to sense magnetic fields, but many other species kept the genes, and the structures were modified and adapted to improve their magnetosenses. If the authors are correct, then these genes represent a gene family and a prospective unique sensory organ that are all over 1 billion years old, and that directly connects complex eukaryotes alive today with their single-celled microbial ancestors. The authors are also clear to point out that they can't accurately determine if the specific archaea independently evolved the ability to biomineralize due to some kind of endosymbiosis event, or if a bacteria shared the genes via a plasmid or horizontal gene transfer. But in any case, bacteria have been biomineralizing magnetite for about 2 billion years. Archaea have been doing it for around 1 to 1.3 billion years, and apparently eukaryotes have had this ability for their entire existence, thanks to the contributions of their archaeal ancestors. This is just an all-around incredible, awesome, and super interesting study. Definitely check it out if you can, or at the very least, read the discussion section. Because I thought this was a super interesting paper, I thought it would be a good start to our science news for 2022, and hopefully you agree.